Oslo, Aalborg, Copenhagen, Munich, all airports that have closed for some period of time over the last few weeks. Why is the mic so far away? Due to drones reported in the airspace above these nations. Eastern Europe seems to be under attack, but the aggressor is hard to confirm. I was never much of a fan of Cluedo, the board game, but if I had to go detective mode and make a, like a guess, I'd say it's Russia in the Eastern Europe with the drones. Get it? Because in Cluedo, the format is when you guess, you say a name and you say the room they're in with the. Anyway, jokes aside, it cannot be confirmed that it was indeed Russian drones, but that's part of what is known as hybrid warfare. You can talk about this with your family and your mates if you want to look smart, right? You can talk about what hybrid warfare is. Plausible deniability is a key component. Disruption of your would-be adversary, generally causing problems, indirect attacks, everything, but open hostility. You go right up to the edge, but then you say, what, me? Little old me? I didn't do anything, right? Think of cyber attacks as another example of hybrid warfare, where plausible deniability is used. Cyber attacks that are carried out, for example, by hackers using a specific language. They're speaking in Farsi or in Russian or in Mandarin Chinese. But Iran or Russia or China say, yeah, that's not us. When the hackers get caught, they say that's not the state. Yes, some of our boys, some of the bad mama jammers, we'll look into it. Pinky promise, okay? We'll try and bring them to justice. But maybe behind the scenes they were just funding them. Maybe, right? In some cases they were. This is called plausible deniability. You can't go to war with the state, after all, if they say, we're not fighting you, but they are causing you problems, right? Now, these drone incidents across Eastern Europe is exactly that. And to bring you up to speed on the news in a very compact format, here's the summary. Germany, Norway, Denmark, Poland, they all suffered drone-related disruptions in the last few weeks. Germany alone, Munich Airport alone, closed in the last 24 hours twice. 45 flights grounded, delayed, or cancelled, and over 6,500 people with messed up schedules. And we know the Germans, stereotypically, they want to be on time for everything. They're very organized, very industrious, culturally speaking. So they're probably even more upset than the average person. For example, I think a Spaniard wouldn't mind. Eastern Europe is getting stress tested, it seems. That's the news. And when I have further updates on what's going on or more drones are reported and the dynamics change, I will keep you updated in a future video. So, that's the news. Go, 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 go. Be free, be free. Enjoy your Saturday. Or stick around for the juicy analysis. Settle down, settle down. I don't know why I said that. Sorry. The Russian Federation has spent 3 years in Ukraine. What started as a special military operation became a war of attrition, primarily due to the fact that the Western powers, the US included, stepped in to support Ukraine, though Ukraine is not a NATO member, and Russia was not willing to take the casualties and the equipment losses that would have been necessary to really push hard and try and actually achieve their initial war goals. So they scaled back, they amended their war goals and decided to keep a slow simmering conflict going. And they still, to this day, of course, hold the southern oblasts, completely or partially in the south of Ukraine. Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kherson. Maybe some part of Kharkiv as well, some parts of Dnipropetrovsk as well, etc. Now, Western Europe is now gearing up for a conflict because the Russia-Ukraine war switched up the dynamics and made Western European countries realize we can't rely on America. Germany, new reports have suggested, preparing to accept thousands of casualties, preparing to handle thousands of NATO casualties. Why would you need to handle casualties? Are you at a war? Well, you're preparing for one. France, prepping for the same thing. Look it up. Is France preparing to take on mass casualties? I think you can probably... I haven't tried, but you can probably chuck that into ChatGPT. Maybe you'll get something. Now, the UK is busy also trying to rebuild its armed forces. NATO chief Mark Rutte, that sits above all these European nations at in terms of the military alliance, he's telling everyone, scale up, increase your military spending as a percentage of your GDP, get to 3.5%, get to 5%, bruv. A few days later, he'll probably be like, get to 7%, get to 10%. Why not? Spend all your money on military. Russia? What's Russia doing to prepare for a conflict? Well, Russia doesn't need to gear up for a conflict. It's in a conflict already with Ukraine. So what Russia likely has done, if it is behind these drone incursions, if, it's not a guarantee, but if hypothetically they are, what Russia is trying to potentially do is test responsiveness of NATO. What will NATO do? How will they react? And will the pressure cause NATO to fragment further? That's probably what Russia wants to know, and it's relatively free to chuck a few drones this way, that way, cause some chaos and trouble and see how things react. Try and blow dust in people's faces, see if they're allergic, and if they sneeze, ah, you're allergic to conflict. It's not a bad thing to be allergic to be fair. Anyway, why is Russia doing that potentially? Because if Ukraine has shown anything, it's that the West is not so united, not so unstoppable as they were previously thought to be. For better or worse, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a thing. For isolated weak nations, sure, NATO works perfect. NATO works fine. It worked in Iraq, it worked in Afghanistan, it worked in Libya. Fun fact, where America invaded and then used Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, to bring other NATO allies in to those isolated desert fights. For Ukraine, though, where NATO is only directly involved for a real fight with Russia, right? The stress was enough on NATO to fragment the alliance. Look at pre-Russia NATO versus Russia NATO now. I mean, pre-Russia Ukraine NATO versus NATO now. Look at it. Is very different. The US has made it clear that it will not lead a NATO effort in Europe. Can Donny Boy be blamed for taking that stance? The dragon of the East, after all, has woken and now looms large. So in summary, these drone disruptions are likely a test to see just how ready the greatest military alliance of the history of mankind, to see just how ready and capable they actually are. Officials from the Western powers often refer to Russia as a paper tiger. But the real question is it Russia that's the paper tiger or NATO? As Russian officials recently very famously said, Russia is not a tiger. Russia is a bear, and there's no such thing as a paper bear. Now that just sounds cool. That's why I added it. It's not actually, it's just rhetoric anyway. But anyway, for the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Mahfouz or NewsBaba, and I'll see you on the next one.